You divorced me for an heir.
Private rooftop garden. DC monuments glowing in twilight. Taiwan has Adana trapped against the glass railing, his tattooed hand gripping her hip, the other cradling her jaw. You divorced me for an heir, she breathes, eyes blazing with tears and fury. His thumb traces her trembling bottom lip. And now, he whispers, mouth hovering dangerously close. Now I'm carrying a child that will destroy him, she says. His eyes darken with possessive hunger. Good, because you're mine now. Their kiss is violent and desperate, tasting of revenge and something far more dangerous. The night that shattered everything. The lie that became truth. The revenge that turned into obsession. Lovies, welcome to a story that crosses between two worlds and shatters beyond all borders. Tonight, we're serving you a tearjerker that'll wreck your soul, a heartbreaker that'll leave you gasping, and a game changer you'll never recover from. Drop a comment and tell us, are you watching from Atlanta, Houston, New York, Louisiana, or Chicago? Let's see how far this story travels. And if you're feeling the love, super thanks and memberships help us bring you more stories like this. But no pressure at all, lovies. Your presence here is already everything. Adana woke wrapped in silk sheets that cost more than her first car, every muscle aching in the most delicious way. Pre-dawn light sliced through floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the Potomac. A tattooed arm lay draped possessively across her bare waist, heavy and warm. She turned her head carefully. John Taiwan, DC's most dangerous billionaire, the man every power player feared and every woman wanted, slept beside her, his devastatingly beautiful face softened in sleep, dark hair falling across his forehead. Last night crashed back in vivid fragments. The charity gala. Too many champagne flutes to numb the humiliation burning in her chest. His dark eyes finding hers across a ballroom full of vultures in designer suits. The way he'd walked straight to her like a heat-seeking missile, looked at her like she was the only person in the room. The elevator ride where he'd backed her against mirrored walls and kissed her like he was starving. His hands sliding up her thighs beneath emerald silk. Clothes abandoned in a desperate trail from his penthouse door to this bed. Her dress pooled on marble floors, his shirt torn at the buttons, her heels kicked off somewhere near the kitchen. Her body still hummed from how thoroughly he'd worshipped every curve. His mouth had traveled everywhere, groaning appreciation against her skin. Perfect. You're so damn perfect. How did he not worship you every single day? The words had broken something inside her, even as his hands and tongue put her back together. 3 times. He'd made her come apart 3 times before he finally lost control inside her, groaning her name like a prayer, like a curse, like salvation. She touched her swollen lips, remembering. Then reality hit like ice water. She just slept with her ex-husband's biggest enemy, 48 hours after her divorce finalized. And God help her, she wanted to do it again. 6 years. She'd given Han Ji-sok 6 years of her life, built his career event by event, connection by connection. Every political fundraiser that elevated him from nobody consultant to DC's golden boy, she'd planned it. Every introduction to powerful people who could advance him, she'd made it happen. She'd sacrificed her dreams of building her own event empire, let her business plans gather dust while she played the perfect wife. And for what? His mother's monthly inquisitions about grandchildren, the passive-aggressive comments that grew sharper each time. Still nothing? How unfortunate. Ji-sok deserves a family. Endless fertility treatments that turned her body into a battleground. Invasive procedures that left her feeling violated and broken. Hormone injections that made her weep at commercials. The clinical cold of examination tables month after month. Doctor after doctor with the same devastating verdict. The problem was hers, her eggs, her body, her failure. Ji-sok had grown distant, his touch mechanical when it came at all. His mother's disdain had curdled into open hostility. And 3 months ago, everything detonated. He'd sat her down in their living room, wouldn't even look at her. I want a child, Adana, but not with you. I can't keep waiting. Like she was a broken appliance he was tired of trying to fix. Divorce papers already drawn up, signatures required, no discussion, No counseling. Just done. Then the cruelest twist, his 24-year-old assistant Miri was already pregnant, already moving into their home, into Adana's home. The heir he'd been creating behind her back for 6 months while Adana still believed they were trying together. 2 nights ago, she'd faced her public execution. The annual political leaders gala at the Smithsonian. 4 months of planning, her final contractual obligation. She'd walked in wearing an emerald silk gown that clung to every voluptuous curve, African gold jewelry at her throat and wrists, her natural hair styled in an elaborate updo that had taken 3 hours. A queen walking into her own funeral. Then Jisuk arrived with Miri, her belly unmistakably round in a white maternity gown that screamed innocence and new beginnings. Photographers swarmed. Politicians congratulated him with hearty handshakes. His mother beamed like she'd won the lottery. And Adana had to stand there, professional smile fixed, spine straight, dying inside, while the family he chose over her got celebrated and she got erased. She'd made it to the bar, ordered something strong enough to burn, tried not to shatter into a million pieces. That drink won't be enough. The voice was deep, accented Korean but fluent English, dangerously low. She turned. John Taiwan stood too close, devastating in a black suit tailored so perfectly it looked like sin, tattoos barely visible at his collar and wrists, eyes so dark they looked black in the dim lighting. Everyone knew who he was, real estate titan who owned half of DC luxury developments, self-made billionaire with a reputation for crushing anyone who crossed him. Jisuk's business rival, personal enemy. "Nothing's enough tonight," she'd said, not caring if she sounded broken. His smile was sharp. "Then let me buy you something better, and let me tell you what I see." He'd leaned in, voice dropping intimately. "I see the most stunning woman in this room being treated like she's invisible. I see a fool who threw away a queen for a girl playing dress-up. And I see an opportunity." Her pulse had jumped. "For what?" "For both of us to get what we want. Dance with me." One dance became 3. His hand on her lower back burned through silk, possessive and sure. Their bodies moved together like they'd done this 1,000 times. He talked and she forgot to guard herself, confessed her pain, the betrayal, the 6 years wasted on a man who discarded her the second she couldn't give him something. He told her about his war with Jisuk, a sabotaged land deal 6 months ago that cost Taiwan $50 million and nearly destroyed his reputation. "He thinks he won," Taiwan had said, pulling her closer until her curves pressed against him. "He hasn't." She'd felt reckless, drunk on proximity and champagne, and the way he looked at her like she was something precious instead of defective. "What do you want from me?" His thumb traced her spine through silk. "Nothing. Everything. Another dance. Your number. To take you somewhere Jisuk can see me touching you and lose his damn mind." The honesty gutted her. "I'm not a weapon." "No," he'd agreed, eyes intense. "You're a wildfire, and I want to watch you burn his world down." She should have left, should have gone home alone, licked her wounds in private, started rebuilding her life with dignity. But when Taiwan offered his hand after the gala ended, asked if she wanted to keep talking somewhere private, she took it. His penthouse was obscene wealth, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the Potomac, modern luxury in every corner, art on the walls worth more than most people's houses. More champagne appeared. Conversation turned raw, honest, bleeding at the edges. He'd asked what she wanted. "To stop feeling disposable," she'd whispered. He crossed the distance between them in 2 strides. "You're not disposable. You're infinite." Then his mouth was on hers and she was lost. He undressed her like unwrapping something sacred, reverent and desperate all at once. Mapped every curve with hands and lips, groaning praise against her heated skin. "Perfect. You're absolutely perfect. How did he not worship you every single day of his pathetic life?" She couldn't answer because he was everywhere, taking her apart with skill that made her forget her own name. They'd fallen into his bed and she gave herself completely to a stranger who made her feel like a goddess instead of a failure. Now morning light exposed the consequences. She needed to leave, get her head straight, figure out what the hell she was doing. She slipped carefully out of bed, found her dress, pulled it on despite the wrinkles. Her heels were by the kitchen island, underwear nowhere to be found. She'd go commando, walk toward the door. Running away? His voice stopped her. She turned. Taiwan sat up in bed, sheet pooling at his waist, tattooed chest on full display, hair messy from her fingers, looking like every dangerous fantasy she'd never let herself have. I should go. This was... Don't. He stood, pulled on pants, walked to the kitchen shirtless, started making coffee like this was normal, like she hadn't just had a one-night stand with her ex-husband's enemy. Stay, have breakfast, then decide if you're running. The coffee smelled incredible. She found herself walking back, sitting at his kitchen island, accepting the mug he slid across marble. I can't stay, she said quietly. I have a life to rebuild. He nodded slowly, studying her face, then, Jiseok's company is hemorrhaging money. He needs a $300 million investment to survive his current deals. And he's coming to me for it. She froze, coffee halfway to her lips. What? Taiwan's smile was cold and sharp. He doesn't know yet, but I'm his only option. The banks won't touch him after his last quarter. His political connections can't float him that kind of cash, and I'm going to let him beg. He paused. Then I'll destroy him. Ice slid down her spine. Why are you telling me this? He turned to face her fully, leaned against the counter. Because I want your help. Date me publicly. Let him see what he threw away on my arm at every event, every restaurant, every place that matters in this city. I'll make sure every politician, every contact, every ally sees you thriving while he crumbles. His eyes locked on hers. In return, I'll give you what he stole. Your career, your reputation, your power back. Name your price. She should run. This was manipulation, revenge, using each other for blood sport. But the thought of Jiseok watching her happy, successful, desired by the man he hated most, the thought of reclaiming everything he'd taken. I don't want money, she said carefully, meeting his gaze. I want my business back, my name respected in this city, and I want him to feel a fraction of what he made me feel. Taiwan's eyes gleamed with approval. Done. You'll start tomorrow. I'll have contracts drawn up. You'll be creative director of events for my entire empire. Full creative control, unlimited budget, your name on everything. He stepped closer. And when we're in public, his voice dropped. I'm going to touch you like I own you, kiss you like I'm obsessed, make him insane with what he lost. Her breath caught. And in private, his thumb traced her bottom lip. In private, we do whatever the hell this is, because I haven't stopped thinking about last night. He kissed her, claiming deep, addictive. She kissed back, already drowning in something that felt nothing like revenge and everything like falling. Deal, he murmured against her mouth. She should say no, should protect herself, should think this through. Deal. He smiled, kissed her again like sealing a vow. Good, because you're about to become the most powerful woman in DC, and he's going to watch every second of it. She left an hour later wearing last night's gown, heels in hand, feeling alive and reckless and terrified. In the elevator, nausea hit suddenly. She pressed a hand to her stomach, breathed through it. Champagne, stress, emotional overload. What she didn't know, cells were already dividing inside her, a clock ticking, a consequence neither of them saw coming. That afternoon, a courier knocked on her apartment door. She opened it to find 3 deliveries. First, keys to a luxury penthouse in Georgetown. Deed attached, her name on it, fully furnished, paid in full. Second, a contract from Kang Industries naming her creative director of events with a salary that made her dizzy. Start date immediately. Benefits, staff, budget, everything she dreamed of when she'd sacrificed her business for Jiseok. Third, a black velvet box, inside a diamond bracelet that probably cost 6 figures. A note in Taiwan's bold handwriting. Wear this tonight, I'm picking you up at 7. Let the show begin. Her phone buzzed. Text from Jisoo. We need to talk. I made a mistake. Come home. She stared at the message, deleted it, put on the bracelet, chose a dress that would make him weep. The war had begun, and she was done being the casualty. Taiwan picked her up at 7 sharp in a midnight blue Bentley that purred like a predator. His eyes went molten when she opened the door in a blood-red dress that clung to every voluptuous curve like a second skin, the neckline plunging just enough to make his jaw tighten. You're lethal, he said, voice rough. Before she could respond, he pulled her close and kissed her, deep, possessive, claiming, already playing the role, or maybe not playing at all. She couldn't tell anymore, and that terrified her. Dinner at Fiola Mare, DC's most exclusive waterfront restaurant where senators brokered deals over wine that cost more per bottle than most people's rent. Every power player in the city dined here, including Jiseok. Taiwan had known, planned it. He seated her with her back to Jiseok's table, 3 rows away, kept his hand on her exposed thigh under the pristine white tablecloth, thumb drawing lazy circles that made her breath hitch, leaned in close to whisper things that made her laugh genuinely for the first time in months. Stories about disastrous business meetings, his assistant's terrible coffee habits, the way he'd researched Nigerian cuisine for an hour last night just to impress her. He fed her bites of his lobster risotto, eyes locked on her mouth, kissed her temple when she said something that pleased him. His performance was flawless. Except his eyes. His eyes said this wasn't performance at all. When they left, he pressed her against his car in the dim parking garage, kissed her until she forgot her own name. He's watching from the restaurant window, Taiwan murmured against her swollen lips. Good, she gasped, pulling him closer by his tie. Camera flashes exploded from somewhere. Paparazzi who'd followed them. By morning, the photos were everywhere. Trending on DC social media, gossip blogs, even a mention in the Post style section. The images were scorching, her curves wrapped in red silk, his hands possessive on her waist. Their mouths fused together like they were trying to breathe each other in. Giselle called 47 times at 12 hours. She blocked his number. He showed up at her new Georgetown building the next day. The doorman denied him entry per Taiwan's very generous instructions, sent $500 flower arrangements to her new office at Kang Industries. She donated every single one to Georgetown University Hospital with a card that read, "From a man who doesn't understand no means no." At a political fundraiser 3 days later, he cornered her in a marble hallway outside the restrooms. His face was haggard, eyes bloodshot. "This is to hurt me," he accused, blocking her path. "You and Taiwan, it's all to hurt me." She looked at him coolly, saw him clearly for the first time in years. Small, insecure, cruel in his weakness. "You're not that important anymore, Hyesung." Yeah. His face twisted with something ugly. "He's using you. Taiwan hates me. You're just a pawn in whatever game he's playing." She smiled, sharp as broken glass. "Better a pawn in a winning game than a queen you threw away like garbage." She walked past him, didn't look back. Taiwan was waiting at the end of the hallway, leaning against the wall with his arms crossed, jaw tight. He'd seen everything. "You okay?" His hand cupped her face, gentle despite the violence in his eyes. She nodded. "He touches you again," Taiwan said quietly. "I'll break every bone in his hand, starting with the ones he grabbed you with." 3 weeks into their arrangement, the lines blurred completely. Taiwan showed up at her office with lunch from her favorite Ethiopian place. Somehow knew her regular order without asking. Called between meetings just to hear her voice. Asked about her day. Listened like every word mattered. Took her to Habesha Market after work, a tiny Nigerian restaurant in Silver Spring where the jollof rice tasted like home, and the owner knew his name because he'd been researching, preparing, learning her. "You didn't have to do this," she said, emotion thick in her throat. "I wanted to," he said simply. "I want to know everything about you." In bed, because they couldn't stop ending up there, couldn't keep their hands off each other for more than a few hours. The sex was incendiary, but it was the after that undid her completely. Him tracing lazy patterns on her curves, asking about growing up in Lagos, her relationship with her sisters, what she wanted to build with her career now that she had the freedom. She told him things she'd never told Yiseok in 6 years. Her fear of being ordinary, her mother's strength raising 4 daughters alone, her secret dream of planning events for the African diaspora that celebrated culture instead of making people shrink themselves to fit white spaces. He confessed his own scars. Parents who cared more about empire building than their son. Growing up lonely in boarding schools. Building everything alone, trusting no one. The exhausting isolation of power. Until you, he said one night, tangled in her sheets, moonlight cutting across his tattooed chest. I wasn't lonely the second you smiled at me at that gala. She tried to keep perspective, protect her heart. This is an arrangement, Taiwan. Fake. He rolled her underneath him, pinned her wrists gently above her head, kissed her until she couldn't remember why she was lying to herself. Keep telling yourself that, Adana. Week 4, something was wrong with her body. Exhausted constantly despite sleeping 10 hours. Nauseous every morning. Blamed it on rich restaurant food, stress, the emotional whiplash of her new life. Cried at a commercial about puppies. Snapped at her assistant over nothing, then apologized while sobbing. Kioma noticed during their weekly lunch date, her best friend since they'd both moved to DC 7 years ago, fellow Nigerian expat, brutally honest when everyone else tiptoed around feelings. When was your last period? Kioma asked bluntly, picking at her salad. Adana froze, fork halfway to her mouth, tried to remember. Couldn't. I'm tracking it wrong. Stress throws everything off. Adana, Kioma's voice was gentle but firm. We're going to a clinic, right now. The test was positive. 6 weeks pregnant. Adana stared at the result in the sterile clinic bathroom, hands shaking so hard she nearly dropped the stick. Did the math. 6 weeks ago, the gala, Taiwan, that first desperate night. His baby growing inside her. Terror flooded every cell. This wasn't the plan. This complicated everything. What if he thought she trapped him like some desperate woman trying to lock down a billionaire? What if he walked away like Jiseok had? What if she lost him before she'd even really had him? What are you going to do? Kioma asked when Adana emerged, ghost pale. I don't know, Adana whispered. I don't know. She didn't tell him, not yet. Needed time to figure out how, when, if. But hiding it was agony. The secret sat like a stone in her chest, growing heavier every day. He noticed something was off, asked repeatedly if she was okay, eyes searching her face like he could read the truth written there. Just work stress, she lied, hating herself for it. Big event coming up. He didn't push, but his eyes said he knew she was hiding something. The knowing hurt worse than the asking. They attended another charity gala together. She wore gold this time, a gown that made her bronze skin glow, hugged her curves, turned every head in the room. His arms stayed locked around her waist, possessive and proud. Hiseok was there with Mire, her belly more visible now, though the timeline still seemed off to anyone paying attention. During the speeches, some senator droning about education funding, Taiwan leaned down, lips brushing her ear. Marry me. She nearly dropped her champagne flute. The one she'd been pretending to sip all night couldn't stomach the smell. What? Not real, he clarified quickly. Too quickly? For show. An engagement will destroy him completely. He hesitated, something vulnerable flickering across his face. And I like the idea of you wearing my ring. Her heart cracked down the middle. She wanted it to be real so badly it physically hurt. Okay, she whispered. For show. He produced a ring from his jacket pocket. Clearly planned this, thought it through. An emerald surrounded by diamonds, custom designed, obviously chosen specifically for her. Slid it onto her finger in front of 300 of DC's most powerful people. The room went silent, then exploded. He kissed her deeply, thoroughly, like he was claiming her in front of God and everyone. The applause was deafening. Yiseok's face across the room drained of all color. His mother looked like she'd swallowed glass. Mire clung to his arm, confused and uncomfortable. Adana smiled through tears because this should be real. The proposal, the ring, the future it promised. And it wasn't. Everything was falling apart inside her even as she was winning. Taiwan didn't just refuse Ji-seok's desperate investment request when it finally came. He systematically destroyed him. Poached every major client with better offers and personal calls from Taiwan himself. Leveraged political connections to freeze Ji-seok out of key consultancy contracts. His staff quit for better opportunities. At Kang Industries, at firms Taiwan had quietly spoken to. Within 2 weeks, Ji-seok's consultancy was hemorrhaging money and talent. Offices started closing. His reputation as DC's golden boy tarnished with whispers about his treatment of Adana, his desperation, his poor business decisions. Then Mirai left, suddenly, completely, returned to her family and soul, broke off whatever relationship she and Ji-seok had cobbled together, and gave an interview to a tabloid that detonated like a bomb. The baby isn't Ji-seok's. It never was. He knew from the beginning. He was using me to make his ex-wife jealous and to cover for his own issues. She didn't specify what issues, but the speculation was vicious and immediate. Meanwhile, Adana flourished like a flower finally getting sunlight. Her event designs for Taiwan's empire were legendary. A tech summit that got covered by CNN, a real estate launch that became the social event of the season, with a waiting list of people begging for invitations. Washingtonian magazine profiled her as a rising star. Forbes ran a feature, From Betrayal to Boardroom, How Adana Osuji Reclaimed Her Power. She wasn't Ji-seok's discarded ex-wife anymore. She was Adana Osuji, creative genius, power player, Taiwan's stunning fiancé, a force of nature. Her confidence soared. She was more beautiful than ever, glowing despite the secret growing inside her. Curves celebrated in designer clothes instead of hidden. Natural hair styled in crown braids that made her look like royalty. Men and women alike couldn't stop staring. Taiwan noticed. Got possessively jealous in the hottest way. Pulling her closer at events, kissing her publicly when someone looked too long, growling complaints in her ear that made her laugh. "Everyone wants you," he said one night, backing her against her office door after a meeting where a client had flirted too openly. "I only want you," she said, meant it with everything in her. Week 8, morning sickness was brutal now, impossible to hide much longer. Taiwan was in Beijing for 3 days handling an acquisition deal. She was alone in his penthouse, stayed there more than her own place now, her things slowly migrating to his closet, his bathroom, his life. The knock on the door came at 9 p.m. She opened it without checking the camera, thinking maybe Taiwan's assistant dropping something off. Ji-seok stood there, disheveled, desperate, reeking of whiskey. "This is your fault," he shouted, forcing his way past her into the apartment. "You and him, you destroyed me, my business, my reputation, everything." She tried to close the door, get him out. He grabbed her arm, fingers digging in hard enough to bruise. "We were good together, Adana. We can fix this. Come back. I'll make it right. We'll start over. Forget all of this." "You're insane," she said, trying to pull away. "Get out before I call security." He saw the ring on her finger, the enormous emerald. Rage contorted his features into something ugly and unrecognizable. "You're really going to marry him? That thug? He's using you for revenge against me. Better than you who used me as a scapegoat for 6 years. The words exploded out of her, years of pain erupting like a volcano. "I gave you everything, 6 years of my life, and you threw me away the second I couldn't give you something. You never even—" She stopped, almost said too much. His eyes narrowed, something shifting behind the drunken rage. "Never even what?" She laughed, bitter and sharp. "You know, don't you? You've always known." He went pale. "Known what?" "That the problem was never me." She stepped closer, saw him clearly. The coward, the liar. "Your mother paid my doctor to lie about my fertility. But I found out the truth, Ji-seok. I was always fertile, always. But you?" She smiled coldly. "Low sperm count, nearly sterile since your 20s. Your family knew. They blamed me to hide your shame." His face confirmed everything. The guilt, the knowledge, the years of lies. "Adana, you don't understand." Get out! Security burst through the door. Taiwan's team, alerted by building cameras showing an altercation. They grabbed Yusou, dragged him toward the elevator despite his protests. She collapsed on the couch, whole body shaking. Then nausea hit violently suddenly. She barely made it to the bathroom before throwing up everything in her stomach. Taiwan returned early from Beijing. His assistant had called him immediately about the security breach, sent him the camera footage. He'd gotten on his private jet within the hour. Found Adana on the bathroom floor, pale as death, trembling, mascara streaked down her face. What happened? He dropped to his knees beside her, hands hovering like he was afraid she'd break if he touched her. Adana, what happened? She looked up at him through tears. Couldn't hide anymore. Couldn't keep lying. I'm pregnant, she whispered. 8 weeks. It's yours. Silence. Complete, devastating silence. His face went blank, unreadable. She braced for him to stand up, walk away, confirm her worst fears. Instead, he dropped fully to his knees on the cold tile, hands shaking as they framed her face with a gentleness that broke her. Say that again. I'm pregnant. I'm sorry. I should have told you sooner. I was scared you'd think I trapped you, that you'd leave, that this was all just... He kissed her, desperately, deeply, tasting her tears and fear, and the truth neither of them had been brave enough to name. Scared of what? He asked against her lips, forehead pressed to hers. That you'd think I trapped you, that you'd walk away, that this was just revenge for you and not... Her voice broke. Not what? His thumbs wiped at her tears, eyes boring into hers with an intensity that stole her breath. She broke completely. Not real. Taiwan pulled her into his arms right there on the cold bathroom tile, holding her like she might disappear if he loosened his grip even slightly. Adana, listen to me. Nothing about you has been fake, not since the second night. She pulled back, confusion written across her tear-stained face. Second night? He nodded, looking raw and vulnerable in a way she'd never seen. The first night was supposed to be revenge sex, scratching an itch, making Yisiek lose his mind. But I woke up with you in my arms and He swallowed hard, Adam's apple bobbing. I wanted to keep you there, every morning, forever. This deal, this arrangement, I used it as an excuse to keep you close because I didn't know how to just ask you to stay. Tears streamed down her face. But you said the engagement was for show? I lied, his voice cracked. I bought that ring 3 weeks ago, had it custom made, emerald because it matches your eyes and that dress from our first night. I wanted it real, Adana. I just didn't know how to tell you without scaring you away. He helped her stand on shaking legs, led her to the living room, sat her gently on the couch. Then he knelt in front of her properly, took both her hands in his. I'm doing this all wrong. Everything. But here's the truth. I love you. I'm stupidly, completely, insanely in love with you. The pregnancy isn't trapping me. It's giving me everything I didn't even know I wanted. A family. With you. The woman who walked into my life and burned down every wall I'd spent years building. He touched her still flat stomach reverently, hands trembling. This baby is ours. Not revenge. Not a mistake. Not a trap. Ours. And I want everything with you. Real marriage. Real life. Real us. His eyes locked on hers, intense and pleading. If you'll have me, say yes. She was sobbing too hard to speak, could only nod frantically. I love you too, she finally choked out. I've been in love with you for weeks, and I was terrified you'd figure it out and realize I was just... Mine, he finished fiercely. You're mine, and I'm yours, completely. He slid the emerald ring off her finger, then placed it back on deliberately, slowly. Now it's real. This is real. He kissed her like he was sealing a vow, like he was promising forever, like she was oxygen and he'd been drowning. They spent the night tangled together on the couch, talking about everything they'd been too scared to say. Baby names. He liked traditional Korean names. She wanted Nigerian ones. They compromised on names that honored both cultures. Fears about parenthood, his terror of repeating his parents' emotional distance, her worry about being enough after years of being told she was lacking. How to handle the public reveal, her upcoming doctor appointments that he insisted on attending every single one. "You're not working 18-hour days anymore," he said, protective intensity making his voice rough. She laughed despite everything. "I'm pregnant, not broken, Taiwan. You're carrying my child, our child. Do you know how terrified I am that something could go wrong?" The vulnerability in his voice undid her completely. They made love slowly, carefully, him worshiping her body with new reverence, hands and mouth gentle, eyes never leaving hers. "I'm going to keep you safe," he promised against her skin. "Both of you. I swear it." Taiwan didn't let the break-in go. His security team pulled all the footage, got a full confession from the building staff member Yi Seok had bribed for access. But Taiwan wanted more than just a restraining order. He hired the best investigators money could buy to dig into everything. Ji Seok's past, his family's medical conspiracy, all of it. What they uncovered was explosive. Not just Adana's bribed fertility doctor, but a trail of medical fraud going back nearly a decade. Ji Seok's mother had paid off multiple fertility clinics to alter records, fabricate diagnoses, all to hide her son's infertility and systematically blame the women in his life. Forged documents, bribes totaling hundreds of thousands of dollars, and other women, 3 before Adana, who'd been similarly gaslit, broken down, made to believe they were the problem. It was a criminal conspiracy. Taiwan brought the evidence to Adana one evening, manila folders stacked thick with documents. "I can bury them, legally, publicly. Ji Seok and his mother will face serious charges, prison time." She stared at the files, hands shaking slightly. Part of her wanted blood, wanted them to suffer the way she'd suffered, but another part, the part growing a baby, building a new life, was just exhausted. "What do you want?" he asked gently. She thought for a long moment. "I want the truth known. I want other women to know they weren't crazy, weren't broken." She looked up at him. "But I don't want to spend my pregnancy in courtrooms reliving their abuse. Can we?" She hesitated. "Can we leak it quietly? Let the truth destroy them without me having to be the face of it?" He nodded immediately. "I'll handle it. You won't have to do anything." Taiwan's team was surgical in their precision. Medical records, legally obtained through Adana's rights to her own files, and the bribed doctor's cooperation in exchange for immunity, were sent to investigative journalists at major outlets. The Washington Post broke the story first. Political consultant's family orchestrated years-long medical fraud to conceal infertility. Ji Seok wasn't named in the initial headline, but every insider in D.C. knew immediately. The details were damning: falsified medical records, bribed healthcare professionals, systematic emotional abuse of multiple women, a family conspiracy to protect their son's reputation at any cost. Within hours, Ji Seok's name was everywhere. His mother was named. Criminal investigations launched at both state and federal levels. Medical licensing boards began revocation proceedings against every doctor who'd participated. Ji Seok's mother didn't go quietly. Desperate and vicious, she held her own press conference 2 days later. She claimed Adana was lying, that the pregnancy was fake, a ploy to trap a billionaire, that Adana had trapped Ji Seok for 6 years the same way. She presented forged medical documents supposedly proving Adana was infertile, had always been infertile, was manufacturing this entire scandal. The lie was convincing enough that some media outlets picked it up. Suddenly, Adana's reputation was under siege again. Social media flooded with accusations. Gold digger, liar, manipulator, worse. The comments were vicious and personal. Taiwan was furious. "We're holding our own press conference today." They didn't hide, didn't let the lies breathe for even a moment. Major press conference at the National Press Club. Adana wore a simple navy dress, her small baby bump just barely visible. Taiwan stood beside her, their hands linked, presenting a united front. She spoke first, voice steady despite the camera flashes. She presented her real medical records from multiple independent doctors, all confirming she was fully fertile and always had been. the signed, notarized confession from her original bribe doctor, who'd been granted immunity in exchange for testimony, current pregnancy confirmation from 3 separate OB-GYNs, complete with dated and verified ultrasound images. Then came the evidence of Ji-seok's infertility, medical records from his own doctors, obtained through legal channels once the fraud investigation had been opened, documentation of his family's payments to cover it up, written and video testimony from 3 other women he'd blamed before Adana, all telling heartbreakingly similar stories. The truth was irrefutable, undeniable. The press exploded with questions, cameras flashing like lightning. Taiwan took over, voice cold and commanding. My fiancé endured 6 years of emotional abuse and medical gaslighting. The people responsible will be held accountable. Legally and publicly, we're done being silent. The fallout was massive and immediate. Social media erupted in support of Adana. Her story trended nationally for 3 days straight. Women by the thousands shared similar experiences of being blamed, gaslit, broken by partners and medical systems, outrage at the abuse, celebration of her courage. Ji-seok's consultancy officially closed its doors within a week. His political allies publicly distanced themselves, some issuing statements condemning his actions. Criminal charges were filed against his mother. Fraud, bribery, conspiracy to commit fraud, witness tampering. Ji-seok himself faced potential charges, was unemployable, radioactive in every professional and social circle that mattered. Mirai gave one final interview confirming Ji-seok had told her the baby lie specifically to trap someone with money because I can't have children myself. His reputation was incinerated. Everything he'd built, destroyed. She should have felt nothing but vindication, and she did feel that. But she also felt something unexpected, sadness. Not for him, never for him, but for the years she'd lost, for the woman she'd been who believed those lies, who looked in the mirror and saw failure. One night, she broke down completely in Taiwan's arms. I wasted so much time thinking I was broken, she sobbed against his chest. You were never broken, he said fiercely, holding her tighter. But I believed it. Part of me still. She touched her stomach where their baby grew. What if I'm not a good mother? What if I don't know how because I spent years being told I'd never be one? He pulled back, framed her face with both hands, made her look at him. Then we figure it out together. Scared and imperfect, and so full of love this baby will never doubt it for a second. Week 12, routine OB appointment. Taiwan was stuck in a meeting, but promised to join right after. The ultrasound tech spread gel across Adana's small bump, moved the wand around, then went quiet, staring at the screen. Adana's heart stopped. What's wrong? The tech looked at her, then smiled huge. Nothing's wrong, but you see this? She pointed to the screen. And this? 2 distinct flickers, 2 heartbeats. Twins, the tech said, grinning. Fraternal, both looking perfectly healthy. Congratulations. Adana stared at the screen, completely stunned. Twins? She started laughing, then crying, then laughing again, nearly hysterical with overwhelming emotion. She called Taiwan immediately, hands shaking. Get here now! What's wrong? His panic was immediate. Is the baby? Just get here, now. He arrived in 8 minutes, must have broken every traffic law, burst into the exam room terrified, face pale. She held up the ultrasound image wordlessly. He stared at it, confusion giving way to understanding. Twins, she whispered, voice breaking. We're having twins. He stared for another long moment, then swept her up into his arms, carefully, mindful of her belly, and started laughing, crying. Both. Twins. We're having twins. He kissed her breathless, then dropped to his knees and kissed her belly. 2 babies. 2. They were both sobbing happy tears in the middle of the doctor's office, completely undone by joy. They announced the pregnancy publicly after the 12-week mark was safely passed. The twin revelation came with it. Ji-seok learned about it through media coverage. Something in him snapped completely. He showed up at a massive corporate gala Adana was directing, one of Taiwan's biggest clients. 500 guests, months of planning, Security tried to stop him. He pushed through, manic desperation making him strong. Found her backstage coordinating final details with her team. Twins, he said, voice hollow and bitter. Of course, you give him everything. You couldn't give me one child, but you give him two. She turned, ice flooding her veins, looked at him calmly. I could always give, Giselle. You were the one who couldn't, and you blamed me for your failure. His face twisted with rage. He stepped toward her threateningly. Taiwan appeared from nowhere, putting himself between them like a wall. Walk away, now! Giselle shoved him hard. This is your fault. You took everything from me. Taiwan's control snapped. One punch, clean, brutal, precise, dropped Giselle to the floor. Security swarmed immediately, dragged Giselle out while he screamed incoherently. Police were called. Assault charges filed against Giselle for pushing first. Cameras had caught everything. Restraining order granted immediately, more restrictive than before. That night, back at the penthouse, they were coming down from adrenaline. Adana was shaken but okay, hands finally steady. Taiwan was still furious, pacing like a caged animal. I should have done worse, he growled. She touched his face gently. He's not worth it. Not worth you getting arrested. Not worth anything. He pulled her close, held her and their growing babies. They stood there in silence. Her phone rang. Unknown number. She almost didn't answer. Did anyway. Adana Osuji? A woman's voice, professional and serious. This is Detective Sarah Chen with the Metropolitan Police. We need you to come in tomorrow. We've uncovered evidence that Han Jaseok has been planning something concerning. Threats against you and Mr. John. We need your statement. The call ended. Adana looked at Taiwan, fear flooding back cold and sharp. What if he tries something worse? Taiwan pulled her impossibly closer, one hand protective over her belly. His voice was deadly quiet. Then I'll end him. Metropolitan Police revealed the contents of Jaseok's laptop, seized during the restraining order processing. The search history was disturbing. How to fake accidents, untraceable poisons, ways to permanently ruin someone's business. Emails to shady contacts asking vague questions about removing problems. Nothing concrete enough for serious criminal charges, but enough for police to take the threat seriously. Adana was assigned a protection detail. Taiwan hired private security on top of it, armed guards at her office, his penthouse, everywhere she went. She hated feeling like a prisoner, but couldn't deny the cold fear that settled in her bones. He's lost everything, she said quietly one night. People who have nothing left to lose are the most dangerous. Taiwan was barely holding himself together. The protectiveness had become all-consuming, suffocating. He wouldn't let her out of his sight. Slept with one eye open, startling awake at every sound, worked from home to stay close, abandoned meetings, delegated everything he could. You're smothering me, she said gently one morning, touching his face. I can't lose you, he said roughly, voice breaking. Either of you, all of you. His hands splayed across her growing belly where their twins moved and kicked. If something happened because I dragged you into my war with him. You didn't drag me anywhere, she interrupted firmly. I chose this, chose you, chose us. She made him look at her. But I need you to trust that I'm strong enough to handle this and trust the people protecting us. He nodded, but she could still see the fear haunting his eyes. Despite the chaos, life moved forward relentlessly. Adana's event company, officially launched under her own name, was thriving beyond her wildest dreams. Booked solid for 2 years. She turned down more offers than she accepted, could afford to be selective now. The pregnancy was showing beautifully, a pronounced curve of belly that Taiwan couldn't stop touching, hands always gravitating there like a magnet. She was radiant, glowing, stunning. She did a magazine photo shoot at 5 months, pregnant, powerful, wearing designs that celebrated every curve. The feature went viral, her story of surviving abuse, reclaiming power, building love from ashes. She became an unexpected voice for women who'd been gaslit by partners, by medical systems, by society itself. Speaking requests poured in from universities, women's organizations, advocacy groups. 2 weeks after the threat discovery, Jiseok did something catastrophically stupid. He tried to hire someone to sabotage one of Taiwan's major construction sites. Wanted equipment damaged, delays created, anything to hurt Taiwan's business. The contractor he approached was an undercover federal agent. Wire fraud, conspiracy to commit destruction of property, multiple violations of the restraining order. The charges stacked like building blocks. The FBI arrested him at his mother's house where he'd been living since losing everything. Perp walked him out in handcuffs for the news cameras. His face was hollow, defeated, unrecognizable. Adana watched the footage while eating breakfast. Felt absolutely nothing. He was a stranger now, a cautionary tale, a footnote in a story that was no longer about him. "It's over," Taiwan said, holding her close. "Finally over." She exhaled relief she didn't know she'd been holding. Finally. Months passed in a blur of doctor appointments and nursery preparation. Her belly grew enormous with twins. By month 7, she could barely see her own feet. Taiwan was obsessively involved in every detail. Never missed a single ultrasound or checkup. Helped decorate the nursery with 2 cribs, gender-neutral colors because they'd decided to be surprised. Took a paternity preparation class and cried during the childbirth video, which made her cry, which made the whole class cry. He read every pregnancy book he could find. Talked to her belly every night in English and Korean, telling their babies about their parents, how wanted they were, how loved they'd be. She fell more in love with him watching him prepare to be a father. They had one scare, Braxton Hicks contractions at 2 a.m. that sent them racing to the hospital, both terrified. False alarm. But it made everything viscerally real. Soon, very soon, they would be parents. Week 32. Doctor approved and safe enough. They didn't wait any longer. Small, intimate wedding ceremony at the Korean Cultural Center in D.C. Her family flew in from Lagos, her mother, her 3 sisters, aunties who brought color and joy and tears and so much love. His family was smaller, a cousin he was close to, his mentor who'd supported him for years, people who actually mattered. No spectacle, no cameras, just intimacy and truth. She wore a custom gown that celebrated her pregnant curves, ivory silk that flowed like water, African gold embroidery threading through their fabric, her natural hair crowned with fresh flowers. She looked like a queen, felt like one. He wore a perfectly tailored suit and couldn't stop staring at her like she was a miracle made flesh. Kioma was her maid of honor, sobbing through the entire ceremony. The vows wrecked everyone in attendance. Adana promised, "You saw me when I'd forgotten how to see myself. You gave me back my power, my voice, my future. You loved me when I thought I was unlovable. I promise to build empires with you, fight battles beside you, and love you through every messy, beautiful moment that comes." Taiwan promised, "You walked into my life and set everything on fire. The plan was revenge. The reality is you became my everything. I promise to protect you, worship you, choose you every single day, to be the father our children deserve, to never let you forget how extraordinary you are." They were both crying. The kiss was soul deep, binding forever. The reception was pure joy. Nigerian food and Korean BBQ side by side on tables. 2 cultures blending beautifully. Her mother danced with his mentor. Her sisters taught his cousin Afrobeat moves that had everyone laughing. Taiwan kept his hand on her belly all night, feeling the baby's kick and move, grinning like he'd won the lottery. At midnight, they snuck away to his car, drove to the penthouse, made love carefully and tenderly with her belly between them, and his hands trembling with how much he loved her. Month 8, Adana was still working, mostly from home as Taiwan's compromise. Her company had just landed its biggest contract, planning the inaugural ball for a newly elected senator. She was on a video call negotiating final details when her water broke. She stared at the puddle spreading beneath her chair. "I'll call you back," she said calmly. Hung up. "Taiwan!" He came running from his office, saw the situation, went pale. "It's early, 35 weeks. "Twins often come early," she said, breathing through the first contraction. Get the hospital bag. Call the doctor. Don't panic. He was absolutely panicking, but somehow got them to the hospital. Labor was brutal. 16 hours of agony that felt endless. She was exhausted, in pain, scared. Taiwan never left her side for a second, held her hand through every contraction, breathed with her, whispered encouragement even when she screamed at him that this was entirely his fault. The doctor warned them, Twin B was breech. They might need an emergency C-section. Adana refused. I can do this. She pushed through agony that felt like being torn in half. Twin A arrived first, a girl, screaming and perfect and beautiful. Taiwan cut the cord with shaking hands, sobbing openly. They placed her on Adana's chest for 30 precious seconds before the doctors needed to check her. Then Twin B, more complications. Another hour of pushing while Adana was already beyond exhausted. But finally, a boy. Quieter, smaller, but healthy and perfect. Taiwan was holding their daughter, tears streaming down his face when the nurse placed their son in his other arm. He looked at Adana, sweaty, exhausted, the most beautiful thing he'd ever seen. You're a goddess, he choked out. You just gave me everything. Once the babies were cleaned and checked, the nurses placed them both in Adana's arms, a girl and a boy. Perfect, healthy, hers, theirs. She was crying, completely overwhelmed, drowning in love so intense it hurt. Taiwan sat beside her on the hospital bed, arm wrapped around her shoulders, staring at their children like he couldn't quite believe they were real. Names? The nurse asked gently. They'd decided weeks ago. Zainab, Adana said softly, touching her daughter's impossibly tiny hand. And Idris, Taiwan added, kissing his son's downy, soft head. Nigerian names, strong names, their names. While they were cocooned in new parent bliss at the hospital, the outside world kept turning. Jiseok's trial began. Federal charges, state charges, restraining order violations. His mother faced her own charges. Both were looking at serious prison time. The media covered it extensively. Adana was mentioned in every article, but she didn't care anymore. She had 2 newborns and a husband who looked at her like she'd hung the stars. Jiseok was irrelevant. Lovies, you've been on this journey with us from the very first heartbreak to this beautiful new beginning. Between two worlds, this story showed us that beyond all borders, love, truth, and resilience always win. We promised you a tearjerker, a heartbreaker, and a game changer. Did Adana and Taiwan's story deliver? Comment below and tell us where you're watching from. Are you in Miami, Dallas, Charlotte, Detroit, or somewhere across the globe cheering them on? And if this story moved you, super thanks and memberships help us keep bringing you these powerful tales. But honestly, lovies, just having you here with us means the world. You're family, and we're so grateful you stayed until the end. 3 months after the twins were born, Jiseok was sentenced. Adana didn't attend the hearing. She watched the news coverage while nursing Zainab on the couch. 8 years federal prison for wire fraud, conspiracy, and violating restraining orders. His mother got 5 years for medical fraud and conspiracy. Both were ordered to pay massive restitution to Adana, to the other women they'd gaslit, to the medical professionals whose careers they'd destroyed. In his statement to the court, Jiseok blamed everyone but himself. Adana turned off the TV, didn't need to hear more. That chapter was closed and locked. Parenthood was beautiful chaos. Sleepless nights, endless diapers, trying to figure out why Idris wouldn't stop crying while Zainab slept peacefully through anything. Taiwan was a completely hands-on father. Changed diapers at 3 a.m. without complaint, did feedings, walked the floor with a screaming baby, researched everything obsessively like fatherhood was a business deal he needed to master. She watched him sing Korean lullabies to their son and fell impossibly more in love. Her mother stayed for 2 months, teaching them, helping, filling the house with warmth and wisdom and the smell of jollof rice. His mentor visited weekly, bringing food and holding babies so they could actually shower. They were building a village. 6 months postpartum, Adana returned to work part-time. Her company was legendary now. She was ruthlessly selective about clients, charged premium rates, had a waiting list of people begging to work with her. Taiwan's empire had expanded. 3 new developments. A hotel chain acquisition. They were a genuine power couple, but they prioritized family above everything. Date nights with a trusted nanny. Family dinners where work talk was banned. Sundays at home with no meetings, no calls, just them and the twins. They taught Zainab and Idris about both cultures, Nigerian food and Korean food, Igbo phrases and Korean words, celebrating both heritages equally and proudly. One afternoon at the park, the twins crawling everywhere at 10 months old, a woman approached hesitantly. Adana, I'm Seo-yeon. I was engaged to Jisok before you. The woman's eyes were kind but haunted. His family did the same thing to me, blamed me for his infertility, gaslit me into thinking I was broken. I just wanted to say, thank you for speaking up. I'm suing his family in civil court now because of your courage. They talked for over an hour. Adana learned there had been 3 women before her, all blamed, all abused, all silenced until she wasn't. You changed everything, Seo-yeon said, hugging her goodbye. We changed everything, Adana corrected gently, together. Month 11 after the twins were born, Adana was exhausted again. Deja vu hitting hard. She took a test almost as a joke. Positive. They hadn't been trying. The twins were barely a year old. She panicked completely. Showed Taiwan the test with shaking hands. He stared at it, then started laughing. We're terrible at prevention. She laughed too, nearly hysterical. We can't handle 3 children under 2 years old. He pulled her close, still laughing. We'll figure it out. We always do. Kissed her forehead. Besides, you're even more beautiful pregnant. I'm not remotely mad about this. She smacked his chest, but she was smiling, terrified but happy. 2 years later, Sunday afternoon, their home, a stunning house in Georgetown with a backyard where Zainab and Idris, now 2.5 years old, chased each other, shrieking with joy. Adana sat on the patio, visibly pregnant again at 7 months with the daughter they'd learned they were having. She planned an event on her laptop while watching the kids play. Taiwan was grilling in the backyard. He'd learned, gotten genuinely good at it, took pride in it now. Her family was visiting, her mother holding court at the patio table, her sisters helping in the kitchen, filling the house with Igbo and laughter. His mentor was there too, on the grass playing with the twins, letting them climb on him like a jungle gym. It was loud and chaotic and absolutely perfect. Taiwan came up behind her, wrapped his arms around her pregnant belly, kissed her neck softly. Happy? He murmured. She leaned back into him, disgustingly happy. He laughed. Good, because I'm never letting you go. She turned her head, kissed him properly. Good, because I'm not going anywhere. Zainab ran up, breathless and beaming. Appa, Mama, look! She held up a flower she'd picked, so proud of herself. Idris toddled after her, fell on his bottom, got right back up laughing. The new baby kicked hard against Adana's ribs. Her event company had just been named one of DC's top businesses. Taiwan's empire was thriving beyond projections. Yiseok was still in prison, completely irrelevant to their lives. The scars were still there, probably always would be, but they were healing, and they were building something beautiful from the ashes. Sunset painted the sky orange and gold. The whole family gathered around the patio table. Nigerian jollof rice and Korean barbecue side by side. Laughter in multiple languages. Children playing. Love everywhere. Adana in Taiwan sat at the center of it all, his hand protective on her belly, her head resting on his shoulder, watching their children, their family, their world. She thought about the woman she'd been, broken, blamed, discarded like trash, and the woman she was now, powerful, loved, whole. Thank you, she whispered to him, for seeing me. He kissed her temple. Thank you for letting me. Their family was loud and messy and blended and beautiful. Proof that the best revenge isn't destruction. It's building a life so full of love and joy that the people who hurt you become irrelevant. It's choosing yourself, choosing truth, choosing love. It's becoming unbreakable, not because you don't have scars, but because you learn to wear them like armor.